Hi, everyone. It's Sandra. I'm excited to talk to you about communication strategies for adults with hearing loss. My key message today is this. As professionals, we should explicitly teach our clients and their families how to use communication strategies effectively. However, there's an elephant in the room when it comes to teaching communication strategies. Do you know what it is? The elephant is the fact that communication is a two-way street. Implementing a communication strategy requires a change in behavior for both parties. Most people with hearing loss are not experts in behavioral science. Asking the other people in their life to change behavior can be an uncomfortable place to be at times. And from the perspective of the significant other and the rest of the family, having to change their own behavior is also not easy. I don't think this is acknowledged nearly enough, or even at all. Typically, when we provide information about communication strategies, it comes in the form of a long list of helpful strategies. Let me show you what I mean by that. For example, you can find such a list on the UCSF Health website. The problem is that it's overwhelming. How can we expect our clients and their families to remember and apply all of these strategies at once? So, what's the solution? In the true fashion of audiology, I have created a new acronym for you. It's OFF. The O in OFF stands for one strategy only. I suggest we start by picking only one strategy at a time. One strategy for the person with hearing loss and one strategy for the significant other or family member. We should explain why these strategies are important, how they benefit both parties, and how to practice them in an effective way. Let's take an example of a strategy that we often recommend, and it's a good one for both the person with hearing loss and the significant other or family member. The strategy is to look at the other person when you speak. Pretty simple, yes? Simple, but not easy, as the saying goes. This strategy actually involves several scenarios. First, you have to get the attention of the person with hearing loss first, usually by calling their name when you want to speak so that they can face you. You should turn off other noise sources like music, water running, etc., so they can hear you call their name. You should avoid talking from another room so they will hear you call their name. You should stop talking when you look away or when they look away. As you can see, there are 4 smaller bites in this fairly straightforward sounding strategy. Let's focus on the first one. So this is a sub-step of one strategy. Getting their attention when you speak so that they can face you. I've created a short video to show you what it would look like in real life. What strikes you as you look at this video? It's only 5 seconds, so I'll play it twice.
Hey, 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 hey.
This is what struck me when I watched it. There's another elephant in the room. The elephant is, ideally, we're asking them to stop what they're doing to listen. We haven't explicitly said that multitasking while listening is not ideal for the person with hearing loss. Listening in itself is multitasking for people with hearing loss. They have to fill in gaps, read lips, localize the person in space, and process what's being said. The person with hearing loss might be walking out the door or walking away, involved in what they're doing, or there may be noise in the background. We're asking them to stop what they're doing to listen. When you're really absorbed in what you're doing, what happens if someone asks you to stop? First of all, it can be startling, which I have tried to convey with my facial expression in the short video. Secondly, there's a shift involved from focusing on what you're doing to focusing on the person who's talking. Sometimes I personally show reluctance to make that shift because I'm absorbed in what I'm doing. This reluctance shows up even though I'm aware that I shouldn't be multitasking while listening. From the other person's perspective, what about when the significant other is not aware of this implicit rule that ideally the person with hearing loss shouldn't multitask? The nonverbal language of reluctance could be misinterpreted as impatience or a reluctance to interact. This can create needless tension. So it's simple, but sometimes it's not easy. In other words, communication strategies are more complex than we realize at times. That leads me back to our OFF acronym. The F in OFF stands for first, try it yourself. Before we ask our clients and their families to try a strategy, we need to understand what we're asking them to do. We need to try it ourselves. For the next week, try always to get someone's attention before you speak. Don't start to talk until they are facing you. Find out what it's like. In my opinion, it's a big behavior change for you and for the person you're talking to. When we understand what we're asking them to do, we are better able to explain why we're asking them to do this. Here's an example. Why get the persons with hearing loss's attention before you speak? It makes your voice more audible. It gives the person with hearing loss lip reading cues. It helps the person with hearing loss know that you're speaking to them. It allows the person with hearing loss to get into their listening mode. Most people with hearing loss have to give their full attention to listening. If they're looking at you from the very start of the message, they will get some important cues about the topic and the vocabulary associated with the topic. These are some of the benefits of getting their attention first. We should communicate these benefits clearly and convincingly to our clients and their families. If you make it a policy to always try out strategies yourself before you teach them to your clients and their families, you will have a better understanding of the challenges and benefits of communication strategies. Implement the strategies consistently to make it a realistic simulation. You will be able to empathize with your clients and their families and provide them with more effective support. The second F in OFF is follow up and troubleshoot. We need to follow up and troubleshoot with them on the strategy we have given and provide feedback and encouragement. That way we can make sure they master the strategy and will be able to move on to the next one. Ask how it went at each appointment. Give both parties a troubleshooting tip if there are challenges in implementing the strategy. Troubleshooting becomes much easier to do when you've tried it yourself. There may be an elephant lurking somewhere in what you've asked them to do. I only became aware of the elephant about not multitasking when I watched the short video. Sometimes it's hard to see what's going on when you're in the middle of it. Here's an example of what troubleshooting might look like. The person with hearing loss says, "I asked her to get my attention, but nothing changed." Troubleshooting strategy number 1 would be, you may have to ask more than once. The person with hearing loss says, "I asked many times." Troubleshooting strategy number 2 would be, you might need to explain why it's important to get your attention. Let's go over the reasons again. The person with hearing loss says, "Okay, I'll try that." At the next appointment, you ask again. The person with hearing loss says, "It's better, but she always talks to me when I'm in the kitchen and she's in the living room." Troubleshooting strategy number 3. This troubleshooting strategy comes from research in behavioral science on extinguishing undesirable behavior. The person with hearing loss should stop responding when the significant other talks from another room. This will backfire, though, if the person with hearing loss initiates conversations from another room themselves. So it will be important to tell them, as a person with hearing loss, you must also change your behavior by never starting a conversation from another room yourself. Try that, and I'll follow up with you next time. When we allow time for follow-up and troubleshooting, we can help our clients and their families to change their behavior gradually and effectively. We can also show them that we care about their communication needs and challenges, and we are here to support them along the way. So here are my top 4 communication strategies for the person with hearing loss. Using the OFF technique, of course, so only one at a time. The acronym for this is MADE. The M in MADE stands for make specific requests for clarification. Instead of asking what or pardon, it's more effective to be specific. Here's an example. I could say, "I heard the second part about Saturday afternoon, but I didn't hear the first part. Can you repeat that part?" Research has shown that people who make specific requests for clarification versus what are perceived as more friendly and as more effective communicators. Some personal anecdotal feedback that I have received about my specific requests for clarification is that it was appreciated when I was more specific. The other person perceived that I was actively trying, and that made him want to keep trying too. The A in MADE stands for ask others to look at you when they speak, which we have previously covered in this presentation in detail. The D in MADE is disclose your hearing loss. Many people with hearing loss think that their hearing loss is so obvious. But hearing aids and cochlear implants are not as highly visible as they think. It's possible that if other people see the person with hearing loss in profile, the hearing devices may be noticed, but that's not a given. So it's important to disclose hearing loss. In their book, Hear and Beyond, which I highly recommend, Gail Hannon and Sherry Eberts write, "You may think that you've been successful so far in keeping your hearing loss a secret, but have you? For all degrees of hearing loss, there's little clues that make people wonder what is going on with that person. Some will suspect the truth, but the vague look on your face or that you keep slowing down the conversation for repeats might lead them to another conclusion. Perhaps that you're unfocused, slow on the uptake, or simply uninterested. Isn't it better that they know the truth? By disclosing hearing loss up front and clearly laying out your needs and what can be done for communication, you are taking charge of communication. Also, I would add that the communication strategies that the person is using or trying to implement will make way more sense to other people when the hearing loss is disclosed. The E in MAID stands for expect people to forget. Be prepared to remind people when they forget. It's a fact of life for people with hearing loss that other people forget. They forget that you have hearing loss and they forget to communicate in ways that make it easier for you to understand. This even applies to the people that you live and work with on a daily basis. According to psychologist Dr. Sam Trichin, who had a hearing loss himself, if you react by thinking that they forget because they don't care or they're too busy to make time for you, this is self-defeating and usually wrong. Since it is simply a fact that people forget, it is in your best interest to accept that and think about ways to remind them. It's not a bad idea to prepare people by informing them that you will remind them if they do forget. Since communication is a two-way street, give both parties a strategy to work on. The person with hearing loss or the significant other should never feel like we are ganging up on one or the other. If the significant other is not at the initial appointment, you could ask the person with hearing loss to bring them the next time. If that doesn't happen, you could pass along a video clip that the significant other can watch. Dr. Rachel Cook on Cliff Olson's YouTube channel has a great one for significant others called How to Speak Better. I'll link to it. It's still a bit overwhelming though, so just pick one of the strategies for them to focus on. Here are my top 4 strategies for significant others and family members, plus a couple of things not to do. The acronym is Roman. Again, I would only give one strategy at a time. The R in Roman stands for reduce the listening effort. There are many ways to do this, and it's probably best to pick one based on your observations of the significant other's communication style. Here are some examples. Move closer, within 3 to 5 feet. Slow down. Turn off other noise sources when you're speaking. Break information into smaller chunks and be understanding when listening breaks are needed. So again, there are 5 sub-strategies to this one strategy. Simple, but not easy. The O in Roman stands for offer clues about context. It can be super helpful to be alerted to changes in topic, who is speaking, especially when the person who's speaking changes quickly, such as in a group conversation, or background information that the person with hearing loss may not be aware of, such as what what's about to happen or what just happened. The M in Roman stands for make your face visible, which we have already discussed in detail. The A in Roman stands for advocate in difficult listening environments. It's highly personal as to how much help a person with hearing loss wants from a significant other or family member. The level of support can be tricky to navigate and certainly needs to be fine-tuned over time as the person with hearing loss learns to advocate more and more for themselves. It's important to find a thin yet important line, said Dr. Michael Harvey, a psychologist who wrote the book, Listening with the Heart, Relationships and Hearing Loss. It's natural for the hearing spouse to support the spouse who is hard of hearing, to show compassion, love, and help with communication. However, there's a thin yet important line between the provision of loving support and the time when that support takes on too much of a life of its own. When a significant other finds themselves working harder for change than the person with hearing loss is working to change, it's time to step back. In talking about balance, Dr. Harvey also talks about giving a level of support that is somewhere between 0%, not helping at all, and 100% doing all the work. It's important to discuss it. A significant other's perspective will help point the way towards solutions. I've often needed another person's perspective to come to my own conclusions about the best way to tackle a listening situation. What's reasonable to ask for when you're asking for a change in behavior? Sometimes that's a blind spot if you're afraid to put people out. I'll just say this again. The significant other's perspective is important. While the significant others helps to find those solutions, it's important that the significant other is not doing all the work to implement them. The N in Roman is about two things not to do. The first is, don't say never mind. It feels dismissive and it hurts. I have hyperlinked to a blog article for more in-depth thoughts on this subject. The second is when you're confirming what the person with hearing loss has heard, don't say, what did I just say? It feels patronizing. There are other, better ways to check for comprehension, such as, I'm wondering if you heard all of that, because I may have lost your attention. Can you let me know about Saturday afternoon? Communication strategies are not just a list of tips. They are a way of improving the quality of life for people with hearing loss and their loved ones. Communication strategies are an important part of helping people with hearing loss and their families to communicate better and enjoy conversations more. Some skills need to be explicitly taught. I hope I've given you some helpful information on this topic. If you do end up trying the strategy, get the other person's attention before you speak for a week, I would love to hear about it. You can get in touch with me by email. I'm also on Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Thank you for your attention, and don't hesitate to contact me with any questions or comments. Bye for now.